The AFL was founded in 1896, and originally it was the VFL. Throughout nearly 130 years of history, we have seen some of the highest of highs and lowest of lows when it comes to our game. And the one thing that stood the test of time are the teams that have provided us all with joy, anger, heartache, and everything in between. But over the history of our great game, only one club has become extinct. No relocation, no rebrand, nothing. Just extinguished from existence and never to be seen in the AFL again. That team was the University Football Club, commonly known as University. This team only lasted 6 years in the AFL, and today we're here to discuss their history. Now guys, let me know down below if you even knew this team existed, and if you do enjoy this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe as it helps out grow the channel so much. But for now, let's get into the video. University was founded in 1859 by students and graduates of Melbourne University. The team had a few nicknames, which included the students, the professors, and the shop. Their uniform consisted of a black background with a dark blue V. It is speculated the University could be one of the oldest football clubs in the world, as their first recorded game was against Castlemaine Football Club, who were formed in the same month. However, it didn't take long for the students to claim their first piece of silverware, as in 1861, University would defeat Melbourne on the second day of the Catalonian Society's games. Throughout the 1870s and 1880s, the students would play in the level below the main football competition. However, between the late 1880s and the early 1900s, University spent a lot of their time bouncing between different competitions, including the Colleges Football Association and the Metropolitan Junior Football Association. Now with the MJFA, the University team were dominant through a 3-year time span, winning the championship in 1906 and 1907. And after their second title in as many years, the students were ready to take their next step. On October the 4th, 1907, 8 teams who were already established as a part of the VFL held a vote to decide the 2 next teams to join the competition. And it was decided that Richmond and University football clubs would join the VFL. University originally played at the East Melbourne Cricket Ground before moving to play at the MCG, sharing the ground with the Melbourne Football Club. The inaugural captain of the club was Tom Bernard Fogarty. He previously played for St Kilda and captained South Melbourne before moving to University for their first season. Fogarty played a total of 19 games for the club before deciding to retire at the end of the 1909 season. However, post-football career, Fogarty had a very interesting life. According to Wikipedia, he was a sergeant and enlisted in the 1st AIF, which is the Australian Imperial Force, and in 1922, Fogarty was found dead floating in Port Phillip, and is also reported in the previous December he was suspended from practicing law for misconduct. So yeah, a very interesting character to say the least. But anyway, let's take a look at University's first season. And unfortunately, their first game was a pretty heavy defeat. University were on the back end of a 66-point drubbing against Essendon. However, their next game would see them record their very first win in VFL history against other newcomers in Richmond. The students fled from start to finish and won by a comfortable 18 points. And University had a pretty productive start to their season. After round 6, they found themselves inside the top 4 and in a final spot. And with 1 round to go in the season, they found themselves just 1 win away from finals. But with a loss to Carlton in the final round, University had to settle for a 6th place finish at the end of the VFL season. A season with 8 wins and 10 losses was pretty good considering that Richmond finished 9th with only 6 wins. However, a 6th place finish would be the best that University would do in their time in the VFL. Now to a few highlights of their next few seasons. Their second year saw them win their first game of the season and held on to top spot. But as the season went on, they would fall slowly down the ladder, and at the end of the 09 season, they would finish in 7th. And in 1910, they went on a 5-game winning streak between rounds 9 to 13 and jumped into 3rd spot. But after a poor end to their season, University could only manage a 6th place finish. And unfortunately, a few big problems started to emerge for University in the coming years. One was the fact that players started to be getting paid from other clubs. And another problem was a lot of the players for the University Football Club didn't have football as a primary focus. With a lot of the players studying, their competitiveness on the field started to drop. Their stay in the VFL would be put into question in the coming years. In 1911, they would win only 1 game, which was in round 2 against St Kilda. And after a dismal year, University would finish rock bottom of the ladder with just 52%. Granted, it was better than St Kilda's percentage, but losing every game after round 2 is a pretty embarrassing year. Between 1911 and 1912, it would take University just over a year to record another win. This was against Richmond in round 3 of the 1912 season. But again, this was their only win across the campaign. And of course, this meant another bottom place finish for the students. With no improvement and the league becoming a lot more competitive, University's days in Australia's top league of Aussie rules football would be numbered. In 1913, They went through the entire year without a win. They did come close once against Essendon, leading at three-quarter time by 14 points, but a late comeback saw the Students go down by 2 points in that game. This was their third bottom place finish in 3 years. Now, there was one positive to come out of the 1913 campaign, which was the season of Roy Park. Roy had an outstanding season for the Students, playing up forward and finishing the regular season with 53 goals, winning the VFL goal kicker medalist. A massive achievement, and with the magnitude of goals he kicked, he actually got nearly half of the team's goals throughout the whole 1913 season. However, the performance of Roy Park wouldn't stop rumours of University retiring from the league. And unfortunately, those questions became reality, as 1914 would be the final season in the VFL for the Students. And yet again, they couldn't record a single win in their final year. The closest they came was in round 10 against South Melbourne by 15 points. But in their final game, the black and blue side went down to St Kilda by 41 points. After a season full of big defeats and no wins on the board, University would finish at the bottom of the table with only 47%. And with that horrendous season, this home and away record would go down as the worst in VFL AFL history, which still stands to this day. In over 120 years of history, a team that just survived 6 of them in Australia's best football competition holds the record for the worst season in the history of the game. University, across their time in the VFL, recorded just 27 wins from their 126 games, 2 draws and 97 losses, and lost their last 51 games in a row before their time was up. Over 6 years in the VFL, University had 112 players don the black and blue jumper. Bert Hurry played the most amount of games for the club with 101 and is the only player in their history to play over 100 games in the VFA or VFL. And of course, Roy Park was the club's top goal scorer with 111 goals over his career with the Students. And even though there isn't exact knowledge of best and fairest awards back then, I would imagine Roy would go down as the best player in the history of University Football Club in the VFL. Now, a lot of players of University would transfer over to the Melbourne Football Club at the conclusion of the 1914 season to try and keep their best players together and build up a better team for Melbourne. But this wasn't the end for the football club as a whole. In 1919, after the war, University began to rebuild its football program. However, they didn't decide to reapply for the VFL and instead would join the new Victorian Reserves Football League, also known as the Victorian Juniors Football League. They supplied 2 teams for this competition, which included University A team and University B team, which later became the University Blues and the University Blacks. Soon after, they moved to the Metropolitan Amateur Football League after Melbourne were unable to field its own team. And in 1921, both University Blue and Black faced off in the MAFA Grand Final, seeing Team Black become premiers. Now, the Metropolitan Amateur Football Association changed their name in 1933 to the VAFA. And interestingly enough, these 2 teams still compete to this day. Between the 2 sides, they have won a total of 27 premierships in the top division, with the most recent flag coming in 2019 to University Blue. In the most recent VAFA season, University Blues finished in 6th spot and University Blacks finished in 7th, with the Blues having just a better percentage than the Blacks. However, neither team made the finals. And for the Blues, former GWS giant and Essendon footballer James Stewart, in a total of 12 games in a 21-game season, kicked 45 goals and was the top scorer for the Blues side and second highest goal scorer in the VAFA 2024 season. And for University Blacks, Aoi Makang in 17 games kicked 22 goals and was the highest goal scorer for University Blacks in the most recent full VAFA season. So that's the story of the University Football Club. While their time in the top tier of Australian rules football was short-lived, they'll always have their place in the history books of Australia's game.